Put it back. Try your best. No.
Good evening to everybody. I appreciate you meeting us on a virtual platform again. It feels like feels just like last year, but numbers are rising. So we're going to be on virtual for the next few months until COVID numbers come back to a more reasonable, stable, acceptable, and safe space, I guess. So, all right. This evening, we've got Pastor Derek Smith with us. He is pastoring a new church in town called The Bridge, and we're honored to have him this evening. So, Pastor, you have the floor. If you would, please open us up with an invocation.
I'd be honored to. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your goodness and mercy to us. God, we thank you for your wisdom that trumps our own. And God, I thank you for every great thing that you have in store for the city of Lone Oak. And we trust you for it. You said in your word, God, that if we would commit our ways to you, trust you with all of our heart, not lean on our own understanding, but acknowledge you in all that we do, Lord, you would direct our path. And so I pray for great wisdom for Mayor Reed and every council member and every person involved tonight, God, that you would lead them by your spirit. And God, we pray blessings upon them for the service that they do for the citizens of Lone Oak. I ask that you bless them many times over. And we thank you and give you praise for all that you have in store for this wonderful place to live. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Appreciate that. Appreciate you being a part of it tonight.
Yes, sir.
All right. Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mayor,
Here?
Ms. Stewart,
Here.
Mr. Richardson,
Here.
Mrs. Bridges,
Here.
Mrs. Elmore,
Here.
Mr. Biles,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Hatton, I believe I've seen him on here. Was I seeing things?
He is with us. Raymond Hatton's with us.
Yeah. I see him. Mr. Florence,
He is attempting to log in right now. So
I thought I'd seen his name on here too a while ago. Mr. Butler.
Here.
Okay, Mayor, we have a quorum.
all right, Jerry Beth, thank you very much. Y'all, during these Zoom council meetings, we're gonna forego the pledge. We just don't have the space to do it. So keep that in mind. I know we put on the agenda for this month. The minutes were made available. I think they were made available to you guys Thursday evening. So with that said, if everybody's had an opportunity to review them thoroughly, I'll take a motion to approve the first set of minutes, August the 9th, public hearing and regular meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion about those minutes?
Mayor, can I ask that we say who we are when we approve or when we
Make a motion or a second. So if
Yeah.
you can hear me, and if you make a motion, please make a motion stated by your name,
Thank you.
and I'll do my best to follow up, Jerry Beth. We'll do this together. All right, so I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the first set of minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Secondly, we've got the working session minutes from the September the 2nd. Take a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve the September 2nd minutes. Alice.
Second by Gibb.
Motion by Ms. Alice, second by Gibb. Any questions? All in
Mark,
favor, say.
can you hear me?
Can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
All right. I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes pass. All right, we got just Alyssa Frisbee here with us this evening. Matt Bowles is not, he sent me an email, said he was not going to be able to make tonight. So Alyssa, are you in the room with us? I know you're
Yes,
logged.
sir.
There you are. Okay, great. So I'm really excited to be able to introduce Alyssa. I think she really doesn't need an introduction, but I want to give her an opportunity to kind of just let her introduce herself, what she's doing and what she sees herself, how she sees herself in the role as a Vista for the city. So you've got the floor, Miss Frisbee.
Thank you. I am excited to step into the Vista position this year. I will be working with Lone Oak 2022 and the city of Lone Oak through July. But if you guys know anything about me, my service is not going to stop because I'm excited about getting through Lone Oak 2022 and helping implement and complete all of the action plans that we have been working on for the last couple of years. We have some new initiatives that we're going to be starting during the 150th anniversary of Lone Oak. That'll start in January. And in my role, I will be working out of City Hall. I will again be assisting Lone Oak 2022 leaders with a lot of their initiatives and projects, as well as developing some of my own. I am an active volunteer with Family Resource Services of Lone Oak, with the Great 5K Pumpkin Run, with Century League of Lone Oak, and this is actually not my first AmeriCorps position, so I'm also familiar with the service aspect there. I recently graduated with a master's in nutrition. I'll take a registered dietitian examination in a couple weeks, so I've got a lot of tricks up my sleeve and a lot of tools that I hope to use to help move Lone Oak forward, to help us be a more walkable, a more active community. And I am here for all of you as well. You can reach me via email at loneoakvista@gmail.com. You can stop by and see me if there's ever anything that you want to talk about. I'm here to take all of your ideas and to help put them through to have a more improved Lone Oak every single year. So thank you guys.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. All right, next will be our executive board reports. Miss Anna, you're up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, Mayor, I'd sent you some slides. I don't know if they can even be shown, but if not, that's fine too. So, isn't that pretty? Okay. All right, I'm going to give you an update on 3 areas. One is about our 150-year anniversary, the sustainability team, and the beautification and recreation team. So plans continue to develop for the celebration that's going to start in January next year to celebrate our 150th anniversary of the founding of Lone Oak. We made some progress last week on planning the spring event that's going to be held on April 22nd and 23rd. And this is going to be called the Idesa Arts and Music Festival in honor of, if you go to the next slide, Mayor, the Idesa Arts and Music Festival in honor of Idesa Malone Nelson, an African-American woman from the area that was the owner of 2 recording labels called Staff and another one called Dessa, that recorded gospel music out of Detroit in the late 1940s. She passed away in 1987 and is buried here in Lone Oak. So this spring event is going to include inviting in professional blues music groups, a short film competition, local artists and musicians that will be performing, street artists, many hands-on opportunities for families and kids to be involved in art, food trucks, and much more. So we're really excited about how this is developing. Also, I wanted to let you know that Cheryl Miller at the museum, along with other volunteers, has been working on developing a book that is about the founding and the development of Lone Oak. And this book is some 200 pages, 400 historic photos. And this is going to be available for sale as a fundraiser for the museum later this year in advance of the 150-year celebration. On the sustainability team, there are plans that are underway for cleaning up along Highway 31, the north entrance into town. And the tentative dates are October 23rd or November 6th. And tomorrow, a meeting is going to be held at noon at the First Assembly Church to try to finalize these plans for the cleanup. Also underway is development of a wildflower preserve program within Lone Oak. And this is going to be done in coordination with the Arkansas Department of Transportation. From the beautification and recreation team, we had our, if you go to the next one, there you go. We had the Yard of the Month winners for September, and that's in the Southeast area, Joyce Smith at 1004 Hicks Street. In the Southwest area, Pauletta Perryman at 2 Linrose Circle. in the Northwest area, Doug and Sally Morris at 517 West 3rd Street. And in the Northeast area, Mr. and Mrs. Elijah Gooden Jr. at 619 Barnes. So we're extremely pleased with how wonderful these yards look in the midst of all of our heat and drought, and these people making such a fine effort to beautify our city. The next beautification award for city storefront is going to be presented for the last quarter of this year, which will be presented or judged at least in early October. So here is a list of the criteria that are also posted on our Lone Oak 2022 Facebook page for people that want to compete in this. So the goal of this award is to encourage businesses to improve the street appeal of our business area in town. And so we're looking for places that put extra effort in cleaning up their business, putting out attractive flowers and banners, landscaping, and seasonal decorations. So the first week of October will be the judging on that next award. And finally, on September 25th, Lone Oak will be hosting the Great 5K Pumpkin Run. And this event starts at 8 a.m. with 100% of the proceeds going to support the Lone Oak Open Arms Shelter. And you can go to that website to register for the race and learn more about it. So with that, I'll close, and I appreciate being able to visit with you tonight. Thank you.
Anna, any questions?
Anna, I have a question. Have we coordinated all of these events like on the city calendar?
No, we have not. So that's a very good point, that to get those dates up there. Yeah, I think when we looked at it last time, it was still under development. So we need to follow back up on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there aren't any questions, anything further, we'll go to Gene. Gene, are you with us?
Yes. Can you see me okay?
Got you now. Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to first thank everybody that participated in the working session that we had on September 2nd at City Hall, where we talked about economic development, housing, infrastructure. I thought it was a very, very good meeting for the people that were able to come and participate. And I look forward to following up with people, continuing to work on that. We've set a tentative date for October 7th of the membership of LEAD for its annual meeting. And we're going to continue the work that we've been doing on the Lone Oak General Plan, where we're going to focus on 3 areas and just continue to have a good discussion and some vision work and some strategic thought on housing, economic development, and infrastructure. There weren't any new requests for information coming in from Metro Little Rock Alliance. And that's my report for this evening, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Jean, I have a question. Will y'all be discussing any options for improvement downtown and the historic district, overlay district? Will that be included in the meeting, coming up with ideas for that?
Yeah, I think it's open for any discussion about the areas that need focus. Downtown certainly is one of them. So you had mentioned overlay district, or what, could you repeat?
Mainly in the downtown area that we talked about in the meeting the other night, special meeting. Just curious if we will be discussing options of, improvement in the downtown area.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the question is revenue streams and discussing how you pay for things like that.
Mhm. Good. So, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else for Gene? Gene, thanks for the report.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to this slide here. Chief Matt Edwards, you got the floor.
You're talking and I'm muted.
Well, I thought I was muted for a second, so I had to double check.
All right. Good evening, everyone. In front of you, got my monthly report for August. We took about 226 complaints or dispatch calls, 157 911 calls. Looks like we served about 37 misdemeanor warrants and few other arrests there. We billed $240 to immigration for ICE detainees, and then $9,888 to probation and parole for a grand total of $10,128 for detention. Anybody have any questions? That's all I have this month.
I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
Alice.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wondered if there was any progress on funding for the camera systems.
We are still dealing with a grant. The grant is not going to cover the in-car cameras, but we are working on a grant for the body-worn cameras, trying to get the results back from it. And hopefully we can get a good chunk of that or some money for that. I think our quote was around 150,000. It's needed. I'm itchy to get this started, but I also know that if I can save some money by going through a grant, that's what we're going to have to do. But we're dealing with the government and trying to get those grants done. So see what comes out of it.
Thank you.
That's no problem. Thank you for asking.
Any further? All right, thanks, Matt. Appreciate the report. I want to back up real quick, say thanks to Ms. Moore for always being with us. I didn't bring it up, but you guys have the Lonoc Public Library programming calendar in your packets. So if you guys have any questions, please speak with Ms. Deborah Moore offline. And Jerry Beth, Michael Florence is with us. If you didn't catch that, go ahead. All right, good deal. All right, Mr. Rodon. Rodon, you muted, sir.
Well, welcome to Lonoc sign out here. It's not been lit up in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We finally got a price, got a new light. It's going to be coming in. He's going to fix it Wednesday morning. And this weekend, this Saturday, fall softball and fall baseball starts out here at the ballpark. We have 13 teams of soccer. We got one 8-year-old girls team from Lonoc and a 10-year-old girls team from Lonoc. And we got Carlisle coming over here, and Hazen and Sylvan Hills will be playing here. And we're going to be going to Sylvan Hills also. We've got one 8-year-old boys team. Carlisle's got 2. We'll be playing against each other. Brienne Parnell's got a 14-year-old team. They'll be playing Hazen and Ward on Wednesday nights out here at the ballpark. And the neon sign will be put up Friday. Zach Eve said it looks like he's going to be able to put the sign up Friday out there in front of the mayor's office. We've got a couple things over here at the city park. A horse that broke, one of the rocking horses broke, and it's gone now. I don't know where it went to. It broke over the weekend, but we went over and took down the piece of metal, and Regina's checking on prices for a new one of them. And our wheelchair swing was all broke and everything. We're going to try to see how much a new one of them cost to get it replaced. Other than that, that's about all I've got.
Any questions for Rodon? All right, appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Whitberg, you get the floor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You should have my monthly report in front of you. It was a busy month. We had 40 calls. There's a bunch of other statistics below that. We spent an average on scene time of 22 minutes and 16 seconds. Any questions over that? All right, the other thing I have for action is our turnout order for the year. It's from EVS, and it's for the amount of $18,949.56. These are the turnouts that we order yearly. It covers 5 personnel.
I have a question about that.
Yes, ma'am.
We had 2 quotes, right?
No, ma'am. This is the authorized dealer for fire decks, and that's what we wear.
Okay. Well, what is EBS sales quote?
Emergency vehicle specialist.
Okay. Well, I'm confused then because there's one quote for $17,421.62. And then I've got another page for $18,949.56.
They must have been in the same email together, but the 18,000 one should be the correct one.
Okay, so you're not going to get any helmets?
No, we get them from another dealer.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, may I make a motion we approve the bid for the 2 turnouts from EBS?
Got a motion by Coy Butler.
Sorry.
Is there a second?
Second, Mike.
We got a second by Michael Florence. Any further discussion or questions on it? Don't forget to unmute. Then all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, purchase carries.
And,
Anything else,
that's all
Justin?
I have. No, sir, unless you have questions.
All right, next up is Mr. Mike Brown. Mike, I don't hear you if you're with us. See you logged in. Can anybody hear Mike? Okay. I'm getting some no's. All right, let's move on. Yeah, there you go. Mike, are you with me? There you go. All right, let's go on down.
Fading in, and can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you are fading in and out, Mike. All right, Mike, I'll tell you what, hang out with us for a bit. We're going to move on and come back to you, okay?
Must be an
Jeremy?
issue with mics tonight.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody's got the reports as we go in there. Grasses and all the goes on that. That's been pretty down. Obviously, it hadn't rained as much, so that's been kind of slow. With the animal control stuff, as you can see, we're a little high on cats right now. Most of those are kittens. We've got a few adopted for when they're ready to go. So if anybody knows anybody that wants any cats, we'd be happy to get those adopted. The only other real report I have is we did order the dart gun. The lead time on that's for, let's see, it was 8 to 10 weeks. So maybe next month we'll report that that's back, but it'll probably be November. Other than that, any questions?
All right, no questions. All right, we'll move back to Mike. Mike, can you hear me? We may have lost Mike tonight. I can see you. All right. He's having some issues, it looks like, on his side. I can see him, but he's intermittent. If you guys have any questions, Mike didn't have anything on the agenda that required action. So if there's any questions or any concerns about the community center for this month, get with me and we'll make sure we get any questions answered that you have. All right, Jim, Public Works report, you got it.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First off, our monthly report. Only thing noticeable on it would be the excessive amount of water leaks we've had, and that's just due to the dry weather. Nothing else of major concern on here. So I'd like to move on to our first action item, which is change order number 3 for water improvements phase 1. This is a change order for $643,756. Also tonight, we have our engineer, Jack Bond, on call with us. So if anybody has any questions, we'll take them now.
I have a question, please.
Have at it.
Mayor
Michael. Michael, go ahead.
Hey,
And then we'll come to you, Ms. House.
I just had a question. The black lines, the water lines that are still up, did that contractor, is he think that person not doing that job anymore and somebody else taking it over?
They had a gentleman working for them who was doing that specifically. Well,
Yeah.
he is no longer working with them. And so Michael is the guy I always speak to, Michael Beard. He's now going around hooking up those water lines. And actually he was on Jefferson today. He not as far down as your property, but so that they are actively hooking them up though.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Alice?
Jim, I was looking at the list of completed projects. Excuse me. And I wondered if the adjacent areas, easements, driveways, streets have been brought back to their original or better order that the contractors were supposed to do.
On the completed projects,
Uh-huh.
yes, we have seen significant improvement on the completed projects. There still are several projects underway that will have to be, they'll require attention.
Okay. When the street overlay, is that still going to be a 12-month delay like it said originally?
Maybe even a little further, but there is going to be a delay on it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Definitive time, I do not have it tonight, just to be honest with you.
Okay, that's fine. And one more thing, are we being reimbursed by the contractors when they make mistakes and we have to use our people and resources to fix them?
If it's an accident or a result of theirs, then yes. If it's an accident that resulted in a negligence on our part, like or incorrectly marking a utility before they dig, then it's hard to seek compensation for something like that when we made the mistake. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jim, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Right in the middle of the street in front of my house, and I've complained about it before. There's water coming out of the street, and sometimes this water has an awful smell to it, and I don't know what it is. Can you tell me what that water is? That ain't my sewer, is it?
I don't know. Without investigating, I have no clue. But I can write it down right now and take a look at it.
Okay, I sure appreciate it. It's coming from that block that you all cut out in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And some water coming, and it's been doing it for ever. And this summer, it just started having a certain odor to it. The odor's not all the time. It's just every now and then that odor comes.
Okay. Well, I'll investigate and I'll get with you personally.
Okay.
All right. So on the table was change order number 3. It's phase 1 water B&B utility contracts. We need action to approve the first change order with the second. Do I have any?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor, Ephraim Jones.
Second.
Coy,
Yeah, I got a motion by Ephraim and I got a second by Coy Butler. Is that correct? Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Jim, is there anything you want to talk about as we go down this list or just answer questions?
As far as the change order, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything you want
Well-
the council to know about the chlorine building or?
Well, as far as the first change order you just approved, it was for additional fittings. And it was partly a miscalculation on Jack's part, but also during the construction process, I was proposed with using some new fittings on a lot of our four ways where we every intersection, and I basically made an executive decision to use those to benefit the city. It was a improved product actually is what we're getting. And I probably should have came beforehand, but I did not realize how extensive it was going to be after we, dove into the job. But really, it was for the benefit of the city. Those additional fittings. Change order number for the chlorine room, which will be change order number 1. It's just the addition of a drip edge around the building, and that's just to prevent any rot or anything else that could go wrong. And it's for $800.
Okay. Have a motion to accept change order number 1.
Move to accept change order number 1. Alice.
Second.
Coy Butler.
Okay, I got a motion by Miss Alice and second by Ephraim there. Any discussion on the second change order number 1? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Change order passes.
All right, next, I would just, I'm seeking permission to bid out for a bulk waste container service, just to try to get us under a contract with a dumpster provider, basically. Currently, we use dumpsters out at our city shop, and I'd just like to make it formal and get us a good deal with a good company. Currently, we are not under contract, and I think it's time to do so.
And this is one way that the city can save a few $100s a month that we know of already. Now it's got to go to bid, but we know of one contractor that can currently beat the price that we're paying because of the way they charge. So we know by opening this up, we have at least the ability to save some money in our bulk waste container, our dumpster fees every month. So that's what we're trying to get to.
Mayor, is this a motion to accept bids or a motion to accept a specific bid?
It's a motion to bid let. So we need, because it's more than 20 grand a year, which the state has just changed 20,000 to 35,000, but we don't have an ordinance in place, which is fine right now. We're not in a hurry to, I don't think, to raise the cap, but because we spend more than 20,000 a year on dumpster fees, we've got to go out and bid a contract. So that's what this is for. I need a motion to allow the city to open up for bids.
All right, so moved, Coy Butler.
Second, Suzette Elmore.
Any discussion on it? Okay. Having heard none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Any other questions for Jim before we leave?
Jim, I got one.
Yes, sir.
Down here on Vassal Lane, they came down and they didn't complete the driveway. Could you come back and look at that?
Yeah, specifically, or just get with me tomorrow and we'll you can give me a shout and I'll take a look.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Jim, I had one question too. On
Yes,
the
sir.
accounts receivables, on the past due accounts, it looked like earlier in the year we were running like 7,000 and 8,000, and then the past few months it's been closer to 4 or 5 for past due. I was just wondering, have you instigated a new policy, or is somebody working on that? Because I mean, that's a great number. I was just seeing.
Yeah,
if we-
no, I have not. Everything has stayed the same. The only time that we change, well, actually, the past due date never changes. I was going to say the disconnect date could possibly change if it falls on before a holiday, or maybe on a Friday. We might extend our disconnect day till the following Monday, just for the public's benefit. But other than that, there have been no changes.
All right. Well, good job on getting accounts receivables in check.
That's that's probably the my PR ladies in the water office who you should thank.
Well, thank them for us, please.
Okay, I sure will.
Anything else?
I'd like to also add, Mayor, which I think you already know, but this will be my last year of employment for the city of Lone Oak. And I thought I'd just make it public and have everyone be aware.
We're sad.
All right, no hallelujahs.
Yeah, we hate to see you go, Jim.
I believe it. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate that.
All right, guys.
So you'll be here the rest of the year?
That's correct.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Jack, thanks for coming with us tonight. All right, no old business, unless you want to count the ordinances that we've essentially already had a discussion on the last council, I believe it was. So we brought those back to the council, and we'll just run through the process. The first ordinance is a petition that streamlines the speed hump request. The second petition is the same, but for streetlights, essentially. The third ordinance outlines permit process and requirements for mobile vendors, so food trucks, because currently we have no guiding regulations on how food trucks operate and where they operate, time of day and zones and everything. And then the last ordinance, 785, is a modification to 581, which is our grass ordinance, basically allows a buffer around. So the first ordinance, 782, ordinance that creates a petition process for citizens to request that a speed hump be installed and or removed. The three, and Jeremy, please feel free to back me up here, but the three things that stand out to me about this ordinance, it says any citizen that lives in the city of Lone Oak can petition for a speed hump. They must live on the street that the speed hump is being petitioned for. There's a requirement that they receive 75% support with adjacent blocks around them through petition. And then ultimately city council has final authority on that petition request. And the street light ordinance is almost word for word. I can't remember any serious differences in the two. Did I miss anything, Jeremy, on those? Or Ginger, either one, feel free to read.
I believe the only difference is for speed humps, we have 60 days to review the petition. And I think for street lights, it's 30.
Okay.
Not sure about that, Jeremy. The one that you had sent to me, remember we had that typo where it said 60 and then it said 30. So I thought we meant for it to be 60. So if we need to modify it, we can modify this street light one to 30. To be honest, I didn't really understand the reason for the difference in time frames on it.
No, that's fine. 30 just give us more time, so that's good.
Right. I mean, honestly, a lot of these you probably won't need all 60 days, but it just kind of gives you a time frame to help things be moving on it. So I would prefer 60 if I were you, but it's your call or council's call.
60 is good.
Okay. Well, the first one is actually written as 60. That's a speed hump. So let's take them one by one. If I can, I'd like to get a motion to put ordinance 782 on the floor.
Make that motion. 782 on the floor.
Second.
Coy Beller.
Motion's been made by Raymond Hatton and seconded by Coy Butler. Ginger?
Ordinance number 782, an ordinance creating a petition process for citizens to request that a speed hump be installed or removed. Whereas the citizens of Lone Oak are often the first to observe that a particular area in the city is in need of a speed hump or is in need of the removal of an existing speed hump. And whereas the city council wishes to create a process by which the citizens of Lone Oak may petition to have a speed hump installed or removed upon obtaining the support of residents in adjacent blocks of the proposed installation or removal of the speed hump. Now therefore be it ordained by the city council for the city of Lone Oak, Arkansas. Part 1, the petition process for the installation or removal of a speed hump shall be as follows. A, any citizen who desires to circulate a petition for the installation or removal of a speed hump may obtain a copy of such a petition form from the city administration office. B, any citizen who desires to circulate a petition for the installation or removal of a speed hump must be a resident of the block where the speed hump is proposed to be installed or removed. C, upon obtaining a petition form in support of the installation or removal of a speed hump, the citizens shall circulate the petition to those individuals residing on adjacent blocks of the proposed installation or removal of the speed hump and shall obtain the signatures of those individuals within those adjacent blocks who are in support thereof. The petition must include a site map showing the location of the proposed speed hump or the location of the existing speed hump to be removed. The petition must be signed by at least 75% of residents within adjacent blocks of the speed hump. Following the circulation of the petition and obtaining the requisite number of signatures, the petition shall be filed with the Community Development Department. The petition shall contain contact information for at least one point of contact for the petition. D, all petitions filed with the Community Development Department shall be stamped as received on the date received. E, upon receipt of the petition, the Community Development Department shall have 60 days to review and verify the signatures on the petition. F, the Community Development Department shall forward all verified petitions filed to the city's Public Works Department. G, upon receiving the petitions, the Public Works Department shall review each petition and provide the Planning Commission and City Council with a list of locations for which a speed hump is proposed to be installed or removed. H, upon receiving the recommended list from the Public Works Department, the City Council may vote to approve or deny the installation or removal of said speed humps. I, all individuals listed as a point of contact on each petition that is reviewed shall be kept informed as to the result of their petition efforts by the Community Development Department.
Thank you.
Make a motion to accept the first reading.
Okay, I've got a motion by Ephraim Jones, and I got a second by Raymond Hatton to accept the first reading. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion to suspend the rules, Michael.
Hang on a second. Any opposed to that motion? Okay, thank you. And I've got a motion to suspend the rules, a second, third reading, title only by Michael Florence. Do I have a second?
Second, Ephraim Jones.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Ginger?
Ordinance number 782, an ordinance creating a petition process for citizens to request that a speed hump be installed or removed.
Motion to accept second, third reading. Title only.
Second, Raymond.
Okay, motion is made by Ephraim Jones, seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. I need a motion to adopt.
So
Motion
moved.
to adopt, Coy Butler.
Second by Gibb Richardson.
Any discussion?
What about loops or extended streets like out at Mallard Point? Would you have to have everybody polled, or on Willow Loop? What area would that entail? The whole loop, or everything's not in blocks?
To be honest, Miss Alice, this is somewhat of a guideline on how to do speed bumps. It allows our citizens to be able to take control of that and to present things to the council, while also kind of protecting Jeremy from being inundated with one person who wants a bump and one that doesn't, and one that wants it removed and whatever. It requires them to have a consensus of a fairly large amount of folks before he has to go forward with trying to investigate it. So to be honest, on a situation like that, we'd probably have to decide whether it was close enough to a block or not. If not, then yeah, it'd probably have to be everybody on there. I mean, the point is not to make it onerous for people to have to do this, but just make sure that we're listening to a group of folks and not just the loudest person in the room on these type of issues.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Ginger. That's very well said. All right, I've got a motion and a second to adopt. Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll take a motion to adopt the emergency clause.
So moved, Coy Butler.
Second, Michael.
Motion is made by Coy, seconded by Michael. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed. All right, ordinance 782 is passed. All right, again, ordinance 783 is a very similarly written ordinance. We just had a discussion 5 minutes ago about changing the 30 days that you see in it to 60 days. Is that correct, Ginger?
It says 60, and I think 60 was what Jeremy preferred for it to be.
Okay.
So Mayor, I'll make a motion to put ordinance 783 on Alpha.
Framing that, not second.
All right, motion is made and seconded to put 783 on the floor. Ginger?
Ordinance number 783, an ordinance creating a petition process for citizens to request that a street light be installed. Whereas the citizens of Lone Oak are often the first to observe that a particular area in the city is in need of additional street lighting. And whereas the city council wishes to create a process by which the citizens of Lone Oak may petition to have a street light installed upon obtaining the support of residents in adjacent blocks of the proposed street light. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council for the City of Lone Oak, Arkansas, Part 1, the petition process for the installation of a street light shall be as follows. A, any citizen who desires to circulate a petition for the installation of a street light may obtain a copy of such a petition form from the City Administration Office. B, any citizen who circulates a petition for the installation of a street light must be a resident of the street where the street light is proposed to be installed. Number C, upon obtaining a petition form in support of the installation of a street light, the citizen shall circulate the petition form to the residents of homes whose street addresses are on the same streets of the proposed street light within 1 block in all directions of the street light. The petition must be signed by at least 75% of such residents, including the owners of the property upon which the street light is proposed to be installed. Following the circulation of the petition shall be filed with the Community Development Department. The petition shall contain contact information for at least 1 point of contact. D, all petitions filed with the Community Development Department shall be stamped as received on the date received. E, upon receipt of the petition, the Community Development Department shall have 60 days to review and verify the signatures on the petition. F, after the petition has been reviewed and all signatures verified, the Community Development Department may present the petition to the City Council, which may vote to approve or deny the installation of said streetlights. G, all individuals listed as a point of contact on each petition that is reviewed shall be kept informed as to the result of their petition efforts by the Community Development Department. H, in existing subdivisions, all new streetlights shall match existing subdivision conditions where possible and current standards of the service provider. I, the City of Lone Oak will assume responsibility for the monthly operating costs for all approved lights. J, all streetlights are to be installed and maintained by the service provider. K, the city will not consider petitions for streetlights to be located on permanent private streets, permanent private roads within a minor subdivision, driveways, apartment communities, gated communities, and common areas.
Thank you. Take a motion to accept first reading.
So moved, Ryan.
Second. Suzette.
Okay, I got a motion by Ryan, a second by Ms. Suzette. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, I need a motion to suspend the rules for the second and third reading, title only.
And the rules, second and third, title only, Ephraim.
Second, Coy Butler.
Okay,
Ordinance number 783, an ordinance creating a petition process for citizens to request the street light be installed.
Motion to accept second and third reading title only.
So moved, Coy Butler.
Second, Ephraim.
Any discussion on the reading? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll take a motion to adopt.
So moved, Coy Butler.
Second, McGibb Richardson.
Thank you. All right, I got a motion and a second. Any last chance for discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Motion passes, and I'll take a motion to adopt the emergency clause, please.
So moved, Coy Butler.
Second, McGibb Richardson.
Thank you. Motion and second is made.
Sorry, there's not an emergency clause on this because it's not an emergency.
Sorry, I thought that allowed it to be enacted immediately.
I mean, we don't do emergency clauses unless there's emergencies, and none of these processes have been emergencies.
Okay. We adopted the emergency clause on the last ordinance.
No. I don't think so. It's not on there.
On 782? Yeah, we just went right through that.
Oops, I must have missed it. Sorry, guys. But yes, neither of those are emergencies. I mean, we still have to go through the regular noticing process for those because they're not life, health, and safety type things. They're just petition processes.
All right. Is there anything, is there any protocol or anything formal, I guess, that we need to back the train up then on ordinance 782 and redact that motion that was made and accepted?
I think we're fine as is. I mean, they were adopted as regular ordinances without emergency petitions, without emergency clauses because they're not included on there. And I'm sorry, I just didn't catch it when that came through on the previous one.
Okay. All right, so we're good then with where we're at with 783. We've had a motion all the way down to adopt it.
Correct.
It's been approved. No emergency clause for 783. And likewise with 784 and 5 as well.
Right.
All right. 784 is an ordinance that governs how food trucks, mobile vendors as they're defined, can operate in and around the city. Again, Jeremy, feel free to weigh in. Big takeaways here is that they'll be restricted to commercial zones at C1, 2, and 3. Now they can operate they got now limiting hours between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. That way we don't have food truck vendors operating in excess of midnight hours, disturbing the peace or whatever have you. And then they also are required to move their food truck once they have closed it down, unless they are affixed to the ground in some way, which again would be approved through the permit that has to go to the city. Anything else?
The only thing I would add to that is you'll notice in there that we put in there that they may be allowed in residential zones for limited special occasions. And that's going to be like a block party or something that's just not a regularly occurring thing. But otherwise, it's just like the mayor said, just commercial areas would be where they could be regularly occurring things.
So like the city park comes to mind. That's not in a commercial zone, it's in a residential zone, but we have a lot of events that are held in the city park. Sometimes that would require approval through the permit. If no other discussion, I'll take a motion to put ordinance 784 on the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion to put ordinance 784 on the floor.
Thank you.
Raymond,
Second.
All right, motion's made and second. Ginger, if you would.
Ordinance number 784, an ordinance creating creating a permitting and licensing process for mobile vendors. Whereas mobile vendors hereinafter MVs are businesses that operate out of temporary stand stalls, motor vehicles, or other non-fixed structures and may operate independently from or as a part of a farmer's market, flea market, or food truck park. Whereas the city is in need of a permitting and licensing process for MVs to ensure compliance with applicable laws and zoning ordinances. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council for the City of Lonoke, Arkansas, Part 1, General. Individual MV operations are permitted in the C1, C2, and C3 zones, provided that they comply with the permitting and licensing requirements set forth below. Individual MV operations may be allowed in residential zones for limited special occasions with written approval from the mayor or community development director, provided that they comply with the permitting and licensing requirements set forth below. Part 2, permitting and licensing. A, MVs selling prepared food shall obtain a food service establishment permit from the Arkansas Department of Health and shall remain in compliance with all required permitting from all applicable food service regulatory bodies. B, MVs shall complete and sign a mobile vendor application from the city of Lone Oak. C, a copy of the food service establishment permit shall be submitted to the community development director along with a mobile vendor application containing information regarding proposed hours of operation, site sketches with locations of any dining areas, a photo of the vending unit, and other information as may be required in the application. D, MV shall provide proof that they have obtained all applicable sales tax and use permits, as well as advertising and promotional tax permits. A current business license and all other required permits must also be displayed on the unit. E, MV shall have written permission from the property owner to conduct business on a privately owned lot. Said written permission must be submitted with the mobile vendor application. F, MV shall have written permission from the city to conduct business with any public park, street, right-of-way, or other public property. Part 3, general requirements. A, markets, food truck parks, and their vendors must comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations relating to the operation, use, and enjoyment of the site's premises. B, markets, food truck parks, and their vendors must have valid and current health permits that shall be in the possession of the site owner or vendor as applicable and on site and on display during operating hours. C, markets, food truck parks, and their vendors may operate Sunday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. D, markets and food truck parks may be standalone establishments or may be located on a property with other permanent uses, i.e. retail establishments. Any permanent uses / structures shall meet all requirements for their zone. E, all sites must provide for recycling and waste removal in accordance with all applicable city codes and state laws. F, all vendors shall be removed from the site upon closing unless affixed to a permanent structure. G, on-premises signs are permitted subject to sign regulations in the applicable zone. Each vendor may have temporary signage which shall be removed at the end of operating hours. H, MV shall not be parked on unimproved surfaces and at a minimum must be parked on a compacted gravel base. I, no dumping of gray water shall be permitted on any site. Part 4, violations. A, fine for violation. Any person operating an MV in violation of any provision of this ordinance may be subject to a fine of $300 per day. Each day that the violation shall constitute a separate and distinct offense. B, enforcement. Violators of this ordinance may be enforced by the Lone Oak Police Department, the Lone Oak Fire Department, and the Lone Oak Code Enforcement Office, who shall issue a citation to any person operating an MV in violation of this ordinance and submit the citation to the Lone Oak District Court for adjudication. The Lone Oak Police Department, the Lone Oak Fire Department, and the Lone Oak Code Enforcement Office may also require the MV to close and vacate the site if the violation is until the violation is remedied.
Make a motion to accept the first reading.
Raymond, second it.
All right, I got a motion by Ephraim and a second by Raymond Hatton. Any discussion on it?
Yeah, I've got a question. The 0700 in the morning to is the earliest they could open up. Is that, did we decide on that for any particular reason? Because the reason I'm asking, what if you had a food truck that wanted to serve some kind of breakfast meal?
Yeah, same thing. Like then Ann Ivy has a trailer for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she starts at early. I would think she would before 7 though.
She's considered a permanent structure, and she went through the building permit process because she's permanently anchored at her current location with power that was inspected by the city. But to Gibbs' point, that situation could arise, and there is language in there that would permit that. I think, is that accurate? Or
my guess on that is
prefer that we fix it on the front end and allow the hour to be one that would be expected to be used. I would prefer to do what Gibbs said and fix it to say, 6 a.m. or whatever we think is appropriate, rather than having to do variances each time.
I agree completely, Ginger. Thank you.
Are you suggesting it be at 6 a.m. or 5:30 or what would you propose?
I'm open to ideas. I think 5 o'clock could be a breakfast. People going duck hunting could be leaving early before daylight. I don't know. And, you know, I think it wouldn't hurt to have it as early as 5. I mean, they doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
I'm okay with
So does that require a motion to change that?
You could do a motion to modify the proposed ordinance to say that it would be between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10 p.m.
So moved.
Okay, I got a motion then to change the ordinance's current verbiage from 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. and it's seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any questions on that? All right, so all in favor say aye.
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 Mayor, I had one other question. I've gone to a few things where, you know, privately they've had a food truck come and kind of act as a caterer for different functions or for different things where it was, you know, whoever was hosting it was paying for it. Is there anything in this ordinance that would allow that or compensate that, or, you know, even, you know, if I didn't know if there was any special circumstances where that might
I would
not
consider
apply.
if somebody was coming in and someone else was paying for that, I would consider that more of a catered situation. And so I don't know if that would necessarily apply.
Yeah.
But to go with what Coy said, we've done that in my neighborhood in Little Rock. Somebody brought the Kona ice truck and people could come up and pay for it themselves. I think that under that part 1 where we said MV operations may be allowed in residential zones for limited special occasions, that would probably be where the person would best contact the city and clarify it through there. And I don't really see that being a real problem with the city so long as it's not going to be a permanent structure in a residential area like that.
Yeah, I think the difference would be a catered event would have prepaid food versus an arrangement to have a food truck there where they're still vending or individually transacting business where taxes would be remitted during the time that they were parked there. So that would be the distinction that the city's interest would be greatest in, is loss of AMP and tax revenue versus a catered event, which would be different. Is that pretty much accurate?
Yes, that's my understanding.
All right, so I had a motion and a second to change the verbiage from 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. We voted on it. I heard a unanimous, but I did not get to say, is there any in opposition to that? Okay, so if there's no opposition to changing 7 a.m. to 5 a.m., then that motion passes. With that said, I've still got a motion open to accept the first reading. I could say we can amend that motion to accept the first reading.
So moved, Ryan.
With the amendment from 7 to 5. Ginger, keep me honest, but that seems logical to me.
That's correct. And to keep me honest on it too, I didn't realize it until I read it out loud that there's a word missing in that fine for violation section. That last sentence of that paragraph of part 4, part A, each day that the violation exists shall constitute a separate and distinct offense. So that'll be corrected in the final version of it as well.
Okay, so what I want to do is take that motion off the floor, and I'd like to hear somebody give the council a motion to accept the first reading with both amendments, 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. and the added, what was the term that you added, Ginger? It wasn't.
To correct 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. would be the first correction. And then in part 4, paragraph A, last sentence, each day that the violation exists is the word that's missing, shall constitute a separate and distinct offense.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to accept the first reading with.
I have something else on part B under enforcement. It says violators of this ordinance may be enforced. Shouldn't that be violations or requirements?
You are correct. Sorry, Miss English teacher. That one should probably be corrected as well. Violations of this ordinance may be enforced by the Lonoke Police Department.
Okay. Anybody want to make that motion so we can?
I make a motion to rewrite that as Ginger put it.
Okay, there's 3 amendments, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. We're going to insert the word exists, and the terminology violations will be enforced by the PD. I got a motion by Corey Butler and seconded by Ephraim. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very well. That motion to accept passes. I'd like a motion to suspend the second, third reading.
Make a motion to suspend the second, third reading title only, Elfram.
Second, Coy Butler.
Thank you. Motion by Ephraim, second by Coy.
Ordinance number 784 and the ordinance creating a permitting and licensing process for mobile hunters.
I'd like to get a motion to accept the second reading, second and third reading title only, please.
So moved, Ms. Elmore.
Need a second.
Elfram.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion on that reading? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Take a motion to adopt ordinance 784.
Motion to adopt ordinance 784.
Second.
Motion is made by Ms. Alice and seconded by Michael Florence. Any discussion before we close out? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Or ordinance 784 passes. Thank you. All right, last ordinance is our amendment to ordinance 581, which basically is a broad scale compromise. We have a few areas in town that we've historically had issues with growing up. And so this ordinance essentially modifies the 8-inch. Right now, grass all across the city is out of violation, out of compliance to the code. Once it exceeds 8 inches, okay? There are a couple places in town that's just not practical for in terms of maintenance. So the goal in this ordinance is to kind of meet in the middle, provide 150-foot buffer off of some of these properties, which gives a fire buffer from local other residences nearby, and hopefully will keep rats and snakes and varmint off of the property owners that live next to some of these areas. And so it doesn't allow the interior of that property to grow as high as it wants. It still caps it at 48 inches. So those are the two big amendments to ordinance 581. With that said, if there's any questions, I'll take motion to put ordinance 785 on the floor.
I have a question. You want me to wait for it?
You can ask now. It's fine.
Does that apply to lots like across from the primary school and out at the golf course?
It's every lot in the city.
Okay, so that's got to be cut down to 8 inches.
It always it's always been 8. Well, as long as ordinance 581's been in place, it's been 8 inches.
Well, it looks pretty dang high out there to me. It's higher than 8 inches at the golf course for sure. And it looks like it is by the primary school, across from the primary school.
Right. So this ordinance would allow that lot to grow to 48 inches so long as a 150-foot buffer was maintained within that 8 inch.
Okay.
That buffer is not from the street back.
It's around the entire property line. So really, the only places this is really going to help are very large lots where there's more than 150 feet to create a surrounding buffer all the way around it. Like you'd have to have 150 and then have a small part in the middle that could be tall. And to be honest, there's very few lots that are that big that are unbuilt that would not have property lines around there that this would apply to. Most everything's going to have to be cut.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question completely, Mike?
Sort of. Yeah. It just seems, you drive by 89 by the golf course. Of course it's cut right now, but it hasn't been all summer. Or across from the primary, that grass up by the road is much higher than 8 inches. So I don't guess I understand it. It's supposed to be 8 inches from there all the way back to the middle of some of that property. Is that not correct? And behind
I don't know how big that property is.
As the
Sorry,
ordinance
I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I don't know how big that particular property is, but if it's not big enough for there to be 150 feet in the front, 150 feet cut on the sides and 150 feet cut in the back, then yes, they'll have to cut the entire thing.
Okay. Yeah, it's a piece of property. And that behind the Church of Christ, it's all that back in there.
And again, there's like Ginger said, there's only a handful of a property in town that this really makes reasonable sense to apply to. Mallard Point being one, behind the Church of Christ being two. Maybe a handful of places over by MKT might come to mind. So.
All righty. Go ahead. Thanks.
All right. Golly, I think I lost my spot. Jerry Beth, can you show me where we're at? Did we get a motion to put it on the? I don't think we had a motion to put it. I was asking for a motion to put 785 on the floor.
That's right. Yes, we do not have a motion to put it on the floor.
Okay. Would someone like to make that motion?
I make motion to put ordinance 785 on the floor.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Ginger, you can go ahead and read it.
Ordinance number 785, an ordinance modifying ordinance number 581, which regulated weed and grass height to allow for property owners of lots of sufficient size to elect to create a 150-foot buffer zone of cut weeds and grass, declaring a violation thereof to be unlawful, establishing a penalty for same and for other purpose. Whereas on or about October 13th, 2008, the City Council for the City of Lonoke, Arkansas, the city, enacted ordinance number 581, requiring that premises be kept free from weeds, rank grass, garbage, rubbish, and other unsightly and unsanitary articles and other matters. Whereas section 1 of ordinance number 581 proclaimed that weeds or grass allowed to grow over 8 inches high were a violation of the ordinance and subjected the property owner to various civil and criminal penalties for this violation. Whereas the City Council for the city desires to amend ordinance number 581 to require property owners with lots of sufficient size to elect to keep weeds and grass cut 8 inches or shorter within 150 feet of property lines and rights of way, and to keep weeds and grass and the remainder of the property at lengths below 48 inches. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Lonoke, Arkansas, Part 1, property owners with lots of sufficient size must keep weeds and grass cut below 8 inches within 150 feet of property lines and rights of way, creating a 150-foot buffer. Weeds and grass in the remainder of the property must be kept at lengths below 48 inches. Weeds or grass allowed to grow over 8 inches high within the 150-foot buffer or over 48 inches in the remainder of the property shall be deemed a violation of this section. Part 2, enforcement of this ordinance shall be as provided in Arkansas Code annotated sections 14-54-903 and 14-54-904. Part 3, it shall hereafter be unlawful for any property owner within the corporate limits of the City of Lonoke, Arkansas, to fail to comply with the requirements set forth in this ordinance. Anyone found in violation of this ordinance shall be guilty of a civil infraction, and upon conviction by a court of competent jurisdiction shall be punished by a fine of $50 plus court costs for each day the violation is unlawfully continued, with a maximum fine for each citation being $350 plus court costs. Part 4, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed, and all ordinances or parts of ordinances that are not in conflict herewith shall remain in full force and effect.
Okay, thank you. Last one here. I'll need a motion to accept the first reading.
Make a motion to accept the first reading, Ephraim.
Second, again.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the reading? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll take a motion to suspend second and third reading. Title only.
Make a motion to suspend the reading of the ordinance, second and third reading, title only. Ephraim.
Second, Alice Bridges.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Ordinance number 785, an ordinance modifying ordinance number 581, which regulated weed and grass height to allow for property owners of lots of sufficient size to elect to create a 150-foot buffer zone of cut weeds and grass, declaring a violation thereof to be unlawful, establishing a penalty for same and for other purpose.
Thank you, Ginger. I apologize. I got in front of you. All right, sounded unanimous. Was there anybody opposed to the second, third reading title only? Okay, now I'll take a motion to accept the second, third reading title only, please.
Make a motion to accept the second and third reading, title only.
Second by Gibb.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, lastly, I'll take a motion to adopt ordinance 785. I've got a motion by Michael. Do I have a second?
Second, Ephraim.
Thank you, sir. All right, last chance. Any discussion items? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, ordinance 785 passes. I appreciate y'all's help on that. It's not as easy as it looks. All right. Next on the agenda, I need action to be taken, certification of millage for the 2022 tax collection. In your packet, you guys can see where our mills are. City of Lone Oak is currently at 5.4. And this motion is made to keep our breakdown the same for 2021, unless there's a proposal to reduce or increase. If there's not, then I'll take a motion to approve the attachment that's in your packet.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the package, Ephraim.
Second, Raymond.
All right, motion is made, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right. Next, I need approval for the film-friendly guidelines. Again, can I give you guys a summary? I put this in your packet for the city to basically give Chris Crane some conversation starter. So when a producer or a director comes to the state of Arkansas and they're looking to frame a certain project, and when, if he directs them in our way to Lone Oak and says, hey, why don't you go check them out? He will have a packet at his disposal. He knows has already been approved by city council to kind of start negotiations. We learned this last time we sat down, Chief Edwards and I sat down, and that conversation of where do we begin? What do we charge? What do you need? What are these fees going to look like? So I told Chris this would be much easier if we already had something in place that the city council already had an understanding of, that he could get a conversation started. And that way, next time we sit down with a director or a producer, they bring to us a set of needs, and then we don't have to dicker over the price so much. Now, with that said, city council still will have ultimate authority on what's approved. We will be bringing these things to the council as these opportunities present themselves. So this is not carte blanche, I guess. You guys have any questions on what's been presented in the guidelines itself? The photographs are simply to paint a picture of the city. They're not all inclusive, and Chris actually recommended at some point, if we see an increase in interest filming here, that we might actually consider hiring a professional photographer to put together a visual packet portfolio for us. But this is what we've got right now. All these prices were vetted through Chris. Again, through conversations, he says they're all amicable. So I'll take any feedback that the council has, and I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, right?
Second.
I got a motion by Ryan Biles and seconded by Coy Butler. Any discussion on it? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Appreciate the help. All right, next, during the working session that we had September 2nd, we briefly, it was a discussion on economic development, but we briefly discussed where we were with the service performance contract. The last thing we've got to do is get the solar panels in the ground so that they're collecting sunlight, and turn that into energy and starting to get a return on our investment here. All right. Because we were having not an easy time securing property, finding the place to install a ground mount system, Shane and Jay had proposed kind of some alternative solutions, to which I presented to the council during a working session. That would be to use a portion of the roof on top of the community center and build shaded awnings that would double as a solar array in the parking area. Three things came out of that discussion. You guys asked me to report back on insurance, zoning restrictions, and what would be the cost difference between what we've already agreed on and what they're proposing in terms of installation costs. And so Shane is here with us this evening to kind of speak to that and answer any questions that you guys have. We don't have any action required on this item tonight. If we can get to a consensus, then I'd love to hear the council weigh in. But I'll let the council decide if we make a decision tonight or if we move on it later. Shane, are you with us?
I am, yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
But hey, thank you for hanging out with us for the past hour plus, just to give us this presentation here. So I'm going to allow you control over the presentation. Let me see if I can do that. All right. All right, I've changed the settings. Shane, see if you can share your screen with everyone else.
Okay, so
I'll stop my share.
Let's see. I don't see the button for that. Where would I find that?
Well, mine's in the toolbar. It says share screen. And since I've allowed it.
There we go. I've got it. Okay, are you all able to see that yet?
I'm good.
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'd like to do is go through the different types of solar photovoltaic systems that that we are proposing at the community center site. What we'll do is show some typical layouts and example images of those types, so you can get a feel for what that might look like at the community center site. You know, the carport, the rooftop, and the ground mount. We'll then show some proposed combinations that we looked at and discuss costs associated with that, and you know, a lot of the uncertainty around those costs due to some of those layouts that we'll look at, and then go with you know, next steps and how we want to move forward.
Shane, I want to add to the council, so the council knows Jay Holstead's online. He's also in the room with us. He's traveling this evening, so he's by phone. And Shane happens to be the solar expert anyways. So if you guys have questions, I know there's continuity built up with Jay already, but he's here with us if anybody has questions, just so you know. Thanks. Jim.
Yep. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, and I believe we've also got Walter Wills, our new project director in Arkansas out of Little Rock, with us as well. And make sure this slideshow works. Yep, here we go. So I want to start off just by going through the different types of systems that we could install here. The contract that we've got is for a ground mount system. That's what we you know, install in most cases where economics is the primary driver. So it's almost always the most efficient on a $1 per kilowatt hour generated basis. There'd be no additional costs to the contract that we've you know, we've signed already. That was the plan from the get-go. Another option would be a rooftop. So putting it on the roof, there is the advantage that it doesn't take up the ground space that can be used for other things. It can offset demand charge at the building it's installed on. We have looked at the community center, and unfortunately, you know, it's got a, well, fortunately for the city, it's got a low cost of power, but unfortunately there wouldn't be much offset in demand charge putting it on there. Certainly not enough to outweigh the additional cost. It may also save on heating and cooling costs, since it does absorb a lot of the solar energy reaching the roof. So we can't guarantee any of that, but we do see that effect. It's minor, but we do see that effect on the buildings that we install those on. There is an additional cost. That's the downside. You know, it will also require an additional building electrical interconnection. So there's significant work that may need to be done. We have not gone in and figured out, you know, exactly what that scope of work would look like, but that would be, you know, if this is something that the city would like to look at more seriously, we would get out there and start looking at the existing equipment and see what sort of additional work would need to be done to connect into the building with the rooftop system. It's not as productive as the ground mount, as on a, you know, $1 per watt basis or $1 per kilowatt hour, either way. It's hidden from the public. So if the if you want to be able to point to it, if you want this to be sort of a showpiece system, that's not something a rooftop system does very well. And then you need to consider the roofing material and the warranty on the roof. These are usually installed with a new roof because this system can be in place for 30 plus years. The warranty on the modules themselves, the panels, are about 25 years in most cases. But since you'll be owning it, the reality is these things can last 30, 40 years in some cases and still be productive and not need to be replaced. So there would be significant work if you would ever need to replace the roof, and pull these up and on, or pull these up and then put them back on. Moving on to the carport, one of the benefits is it adds shaded parking. It's very visible to the public. They look really cool, I think. One of the downsides is, it's expensive, and that cost is highly dependent on steel commodity prices. So we've seen just in the last 6 months about a 20% increase in steel costs. That affects our ground mount systems, to a lesser extent our rooftop systems, but it's it really affects the carport systems because there's so much steel used in these. It's the most expensive of all these types of systems, and can be the least productive, especially when we're orienting the modules so that they aren't facing due south where the sun's coming from, which you'll see, in this case, some of it wouldn't be. And it also may require an additional electrical interconnection. If it's paired with a ground mounted system, then, we may be able to connect them and have one interconnection into the grid. But due to the distance that we'll show you here, it might actually require its own. If it's paired with a rooftop, it will require most likely an additional electrical interconnection, which increases costs and adds uncertainty to that cost until we explore that. So that being said, I'll go into sort of the layouts and images, unless there's any questions we've got here, and feel free to jump in at any point and, with questions or comments. So what we're showing here is the ground mount, and this all wouldn't be installed at once. But this is the ground mount system that would represent a typical fixed tilt system that would supply the total amount of electricity per the contract. And then the equivalent would be the rooftop and carport to the north there. So it would be sort of either or as we'll see, we could do a combination. What we did is just a layout here so you could see what they all look like on that property. Here we see the rendering of the ground mount. In the background, you've got the rooftop and the carport. This is what a typical fixed tilt ground mount would look like from ground level. What we're showing, I believe, is a 6 foot chain link fence there. There's all sorts of options we can do with that. The community center, you may or may not want the barbed wire on top of that, the security fence. That's typical, but again, all sorts of fencing options we can discuss there. Another ground level view of that. Here's what it would look like driving by on the highway there. And here's one we installed in Howard County, Arkansas, showing what it would look like, in real life. And that's just to give you a sense of scale. A couple of our McKinstry folks standing next to it. One thing to note, it's not an issue on this property, but these do work okay with contours in the land too. Luckily, this community center site is very flat. We wouldn't have to deal with any of that, but it is a possibility there. So here we see the rooftop and carport designs only. Another angle of those just to get a better feel for it. And here's an actual installation. This is up in Seattle. This is a rooftop system we did on the new hockey team's practice facility. This is the same system that we would be planning on using. It's called a panel cloth system. It's pretty typical for these membrane roofs. And it's low lying, a single module high. Here's a bigger overview, you can see some of the uncompleted part in the upper right. And this is the way it's actually installed. You can see there's some rubber footing and then another kind of piece of membrane underneath the metal racks where it sits on the roof, and then it's weighed down with these concrete blocks. So it's not actually penetrating the roof membrane at all, just sitting on top. This is the electrical room work that was needed to be done with this installation, and so just another reminder that you know, in this case, we actually needed to add a new electrical panel, which can be costly. Some cases you don't. It really just depends on you know, on the building system. We would have to look at that. Here's the carport. What we are proposing is, you know, this right here, but this can be moved around. You know, you can have more or less of it. This is just one, you know, sort of conceptual layout we had to get a feel for it. This is where you can, you know, see it does involve a lot more steel than the other types of installations. Those beams there are pretty heavy duty. We also discussed doing some electric charging, and these pair really well with that. There's, you know, sort of if you're doing the mounting in the parking lot anyway, you can put in some of those stations as well. Kind of adds to the you know, the PR value of it all. And you know, before too long here, if you're not seeing it already, there will be a demand for those charging stations. Here's a view from the entrance. So you can see this type of system, you know, depending on your personal view, you know, I think it looks really good. Certainly draws a lot of attention and could be kind of a showpiece for the community. A view from in the parking lot. And here's one that McKinstry is installing. Unfortunately, it wasn't all the way done. They were just starting it when I went there and toured it. But again, you can see, you know, how much steel these things actually use. So with commodity prices these days, it's yeah, they're a little pricier. So I just want to prepare everybody before we discuss pricing on any of these, especially the carport. But they look great. Add the shaded parking, a lot of sort of, you know, PR value you can get out of it as well. So we'll look at different combinations that we discussed. One would be that rooftop and carport without the ground mount system. This one we estimated to be an additional $550,000 to $650,000 to install on top. You know, that'd be additionally to the contract. We believe we can, you know, that's before value engineering, and so there's some flexibility there, I would hope, but certainly I'm not promising, you know, that would come down, but it is a significant, you know, cost increase to the ground mount alone. Another option we discussed was, you know, some of all of it. So fill up the roof, do some carport for the sort of the publicity, the shaded parking, and then put the rest on the ground to generate, you know, the energy that we guaranteed, the offset we guaranteed in the contract. That is, we're looking at $450,000 to $600,000+ additional. It's really hard to say because, again, now we're looking at potentially 3 separate electrical interconnections. There's a chance we could combine the ground mount and the carport, and then have a separate for the rooftop. You know, but you can sort of get a best of all worlds here in some way. Another option we discussed was the rooftop and the ground mount. So fill up the rooftop to avoid using as much of the ground as we can, and then put the rest on the ground. This one, we were looking at $175,000 to maybe $250,000 additional. So, you know, it's no matter how much we value that extra land. I do want to point out that we've recently, since the renderings were done, we've begun working on a new design that we think can actually save a lot of that ground without having to put it on the roof. So it would occupy about what you're seeing in the blue box to the south. But this is the sort of typical 2-module high fixed tilt ground mount. That's about what it would take up.
So I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you just say that you're working on the ground mount design that would be smaller than what's done in this rendering?
Yeah, so yep, exactly. So what we're seeing here on the screen now is the ground mount system that we had proposed from the beginning. Typical 2 modules high, 20-foot spacing in between rows roughly. But, and here's the one again, we're just in the schematic phase right now, so we didn't get a chance to actually render this yet. We're going through kind of the electrical layout and finding racking manufacturers who make the sort of the underlying foundations and racking systems for this. But in this case, it would actually be 4 modules high. It would be a little bit taller, but not a ton, because it's a little tricky. There's a limitation. We can't angle it at the optimal angle because of just the size of these panels, these collections of arrays. But we think this is a viable option. We could fit it into that space rather than sort of your typical system, which would fit into about that space. This one too, it's worth noting, we could probably take some off the end, put a row on top and squeeze it in a little bit more. This represents the most area it would take up. So we wanted to be conservative with that before promising anything. But yeah, we believe we can fit it all into something that looks like that. I don't know what the associated cost would be because of that design here is not as efficient as this design. It's more expensive to generate the same amount of electricity because it's not the sort of optimal layout, but it is doable, and we could certainly look into continue down that path and figure out the cost for that. But those are the general layout options we're looking at, and what we'd like to do is work with you all to decide what value you might place on anything other than the ground mount option, which would be the standard. And once we have decided upon a path to pursue, we can start pricing that up, do the engineering, and then move forward with installation. If it looks like it's just the ground mount that is the path forward, we can just get to work doing the remaining engineering and installation. But very interested in hearing everybody's thoughts and coming to a decision on whether or not we want to move forward with any of the sort of alternate proposals.
Jane, can you go back one slide, please? Just for the sake of another idea, would it be more suitable to everyone and maybe a better use of that real estate? What if we just lined it all the way down that southern border of the property, and we had 2 rows all the way down, and then we still have open space there, 70, between there and the community center. You see what I'm talking about, Shane?
I do, yeah, and that's certainly possible. What we try to do in general is make them as square as possible, and that's because it will minimize the amount of fencing, so the linear feet of fencing per area within that rectangle. So again, when we're optimizing the design, we'll do something that looks a little bit more like that. It also, there's anytime we get away from a square, basically, we have an increased cost for trenching, for wire, for fencing, for any sort of anything that's priced on a linear foot basis. But it's not, I don't want to say that's out of the question at all. Those costs are generally not the driving factors for a project of this size. They are significant, and we would have to consider how they vary from what we budgeted. But that is absolutely an option.
Give something to think about too for the rest of the council. You'll notice on this image that there's a crossover that connects the school across that ditch. I've never used it. I've never been over there, but yeah, exactly right. To my understanding, that's a path of least resistance that gets kids from the school into the community center space. If we had a linear 2 rows linearly in the south pocket, that would block any pedestrian traffic that might be designed for in the future. Just to think about. I'm not counting out your suggestion, but
No, that's a good point.
They also use that for practicing junior high football, that field right there.
Oh,
right in here. Right to the west of them.
And Shane, I don't know if you made the point or not this slide, but the regular square that you proposed, that's already calculated in our plan. So
correct.
No additional cost incurred for that blue square as it stands.
That's correct. And we also, again, that is the most I think it would occupy. I believe when I work with Roxanne, our engineer on this, she's indicated to me that we can squeeze that in. What we'll do is actually take some of that, put it up to the north, and it won't extend that far. This is more kind of a conceptual and sort of conservative layout, but
that option blocks that crossover as well.
It does. The fence isn't until up here, and I moved it, a little away from that in order to allow for a walkway around.
Okay.
But I'd imagine that if we moved it closer, there'd still be enough room to walk through. We'd clip off some of the ends, put them to the north. It wouldn't be a straight shot. I don't know that we could squeeze it that much using this particular layout. But if that is a valuable walkway, if that maintaining that is of value to Lone Oak, then what we could do is explore an option that might not be the optimal design. It might have some costs associated with it, but could maintain that, some sort of hybrid design. That's kind of beyond my technical expertise. We've got to start getting the engineers in on that side, but it's probably doable.
I think that if the junior high football team uses that field and they walk over that, use that crossover, then that's something we certainly want to maintain.
Okay.
And that's just me. I mean, what do y'all think? Roy, Don? How much do they use it?
I know they practice in the morning times and they go over there instead of going to the football field. It's easier for them to just walk across, but they can use the west side of that. They can walk across and use the west side of that field also.
Yeah, or we could reposition the walkway.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's a good point.
I have a question about the alignment of the solar panels. These appear to be facing like north and south. The ones east of town they move with the movement of the sun. So does it matter?
Yes, they are different designs. Good to notice. So this is called a fixed tilt. So these will be angled to the south, and they won't move with the sun. In the northern hemisphere, the sun is always in the south. It moves east to west, but always on the south side of our sky. And so these will just, face south and capture sun passively. Single axis tracking system, which is likely installed over there. The rows will run north-south, but the panels, you're right, the modules will face east-west and track the sun. They are significantly more efficient on a dollar per kilowatt hour generated basis. That's what's used in most larger scale, utility scale projects. It's actually what I'm most familiar with. There are concerns that we had in discussing this with the mayor in maintaining that. They do, they've got moving parts every day. You've got motors moving back and forth. So they do require preventative maintenance and then motor replacement, parts replacement, And I believe in this case, it was decided that the ease of the fixed tilt and the low maintenance was worth the slight additional cost. And on a project of this size, the complexity, sort of the cost of getting some of that equipment installed doesn't make quite as big a difference as it would on a much larger project.
And how much does it affect the efficiency then? You said it was not as efficient as if they were running the other way.
Correct. Yeah, it depends. I would guess 20%-ish. We didn't model it for this this particular site. But yeah, in general, you could probably see 20% better or more generation for the wattage, for the capacity installed. But it is a more expensive system. So so it's hard to say without actually designing one of them for this, what the benefit would be, on a kind of dollar per kilowatt hour basis. It's going to be marginal at best. Also, those systems do take up a lot more room. So it would, because in that case, you're really trying to minimize shading between rows, when the sun comes up in the east and goes west. So it would be larger than this area to get that amount of a single axis tracker in. They're usually used where you've got utility scale, where you've got lots of acreage, cheap land, no space constraints. Those are the most efficient systems to put in. But,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, they do take up more space too.
One question, you had said you'd given us one scenario where it was using the top of using the rooftop and then using no. Yes, that scenario. What did you say the increased price of that would be?
Let's see here. We are looking at ground and roof. Hard to say without knowing more about the building electrical interconnection, because we're actually adding a second interconnection. But I would, at this point, we would guess $175,000 to $250,000 extra.
Mayor, what did we have budgeted for our property acquisition?
48,000.
48,000.
It's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in looking at this, I'm just so inclined to be so protective of that land. When you stop and think about the growth of the city, that land we have at that community center is probably the most viable land for neighborhoods, for children walking from schools, walking from their house without having to get on, many major thoroughfares or roadways. And we're landlocked there. And I'm just so concerned about the future. It may not be in our lifetime, but I just feel like we need to be so protective of the small amount of land that we have there, just because if Lone Oak takes off like we think it will, hopefully in our lifetimes, I'm hoping we will need that land for future editions of the community center and aspirations we have for families and for children that can actually walk there without having adult supervision. The other thought, if I had to choose one of the three, now I would go for the rooftop on the parking, even though it's, more costly to do that, because it provides us with additional amenities, not only the additional charging stations in the future, which we all know at some point we're going to that, and reading a lot of literature toward that, that's where we're headed, not to count protecting cars, providing shade and other amenities. And the other thought I have is, instead of using this valuable land or trying to conserve it, the Methodist Church just south of this has 5.61 acres of level ground for $49,000. You know, would it be more advantageous to us to spend just $149,000 and save on these additional expenses of trying to construct a site on the roof? You know, and then we have to worry about the weight. I'm assuming that if we ever had to replace it, I think you mentioned, Shane, maybe in 30 years or so, having to deconstruct everything and reconstruct it. What is that cost going to be in the future? You know, that wouldn't even compare to just purchasing land and putting it in an additional space that would conserve our community center land. I mean, those are thoughts I have.
And it would depend what kind of property that church has. So one of the requirements for any of these systems is a 3-phase distribution line that's adjacent to the site that has enough capacity to handle the power injection without any major upgrades. And so that's one of the reasons that maybe we didn't highlight here. One of the reasons we are choosing this site is electrically, it's a good one. We did check out some others that were not as workable because of that. So as long as the that land has, all of the criteria required for a good site, it has 3-phase lines, it's not in a floodplain, no wetlands, no endangered species, yada, 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 zoning, all of that stuff, certainly worth looking at. I'm not sure that we considered that one before in our sort of land search process or not. But yeah, let's take a look at it at least. But that is something to consider, that most sites don't work because of the electrical requirements. So we would just have to talk with the utility about that.
And I know we did discuss it, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. I know it did come up in discussion at one point about that area, which is what, a couple of blocks away. Actually, it's on the next block south. It's just south of the school.
Okay.
Fish Hatchery Road. Mayor, didn't we discuss maybe that, there you go, is an option at one time? Let's see.
Here.
It's at the,
the conversation I recall when we did discuss that property was, again, 25,000 an acre. And that's back when we were still searching for that sick. We had 48,000. So, 25,000 an acre at that point that we were discussing that property wasn't really considered an amicable purchase for this type of project.
yeah, I'm just thinking the additional costs that we might incur by using the rooftop or, using some of these other areas as opposed to maybe just making an offer for some land that would save our community center land for future growth. I don't know. What are some of you other council members? And Trey, can we pull up that acreage? Can you zoom in on that just to show Shane what area we're referencing?
Oh, well, so he's got it open right here. And to be quite honest with you, Suzanne, I couldn't define the border around the Methodist Church, but Shane, if you'll scroll down, just a hair, just another inch or two. Okay, right there. There's Fish Hatchery Road right there, north of Fish Hatchery. I don't know what the plot lines are, Suzette. So you got to.
It would be.
Yeah, I've got the survey on it.
Isn't it about where his arrow is on that little brown spot, isn't it, Suzette?
Yeah, it's that land between the Jehovah Witness and to the east, less, I think, 2 acres, but it's mainly that brown area there. Yes, there.
One point to consider is that last working session we just discussed, the need for homes, new home construction, home development, and the property that we will be taking up at the community center cannot be used for that type of purpose. Whereas any property that we would be spending 25,000 an acre for, that's land in the future, hopefully would be developed for housing. So I know it's 4 acres, but you can put,
5.61 acres.
I'm sorry, 5.61.
Yes, 5.61.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, from
5.61 acres of property that we would be occupying that you can't build homes on.
And from a quick look, I believe that's a different circuit. So we would have to, study that with the utility to figure out whether or not that's electrically viable. But from a first glance, it's flat and clear, at least. Floodplain risk being near those ponds, but again, it would just take some more due diligence to look into that.
Shane, we're at 2 hours, so I want to be respectful.
Yep.
But if you wouldn't mind, just and Jay's on here too. I hope he's listening to us. If either one of you would just kind of give us some gravity of, I know time is of the essence.
Mm-hmm.
We were hoping to have this project installed through, I don't know, ribbon cutting on it probably a month ago, like complete and finalized already.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us just some of your thoughts on how quickly we need to move and the longer we wait,
well, like we say, at least with the steel prices, that is something we've already seen a significant increase. We just installed a project for Sebastian County and got hit with about an 8% increase in steel costs. This one, we've seen about a 20% increase in steel costs since we've signed a contract. And so we don't see that going down anytime real soon. So that is something we are very concerned about. Module prices increasing as well with some of I'm not sure if you've heard some of the stuff with China in the news.
we have our modules. We just
you do have the modules. Good.
Yeah,
that's right. Those are locked in. So really, it's steel price and just getting this done. One thing to consider with the land too is that the community center, we know it looks very good as far as a constructability perspective, and that $25,000 an acre for the other property, that might be something where when there is expansion, or if there is expansion needed for the community center at that time, you could be willing to spend that. I'm not sure if it's worth spending now, but that's not a decision, for us. But we certainly are interested in delivering this and making sure that it's paying you guys back according to the schedule that was initially proposed.
Are there any final thoughts on the project? That there's no action to be taken. Council asked for some more preliminary numbers on the difference in what we've already excuse me, what we've already purchased versus what we could do in effort to kind of save and protect some of that property, like Suzette was talking about earlier. Are there any other final thoughts on this before we move on?
I would just say that given how long we have been working on this and how long it's been delayed, it seems like the most responsible thing would be to go ahead and get it done in the ground mount. If they can reduce the footprint of the solar panel array, good, but we need to get this done.
I would agree with you, Ms. Alice.
And the other prices, we aren't in a position to spend anywhere from $175,000 to $600,000 more on this project. So I think our options are limited.
I agree, Miss Alice.
Yeah, I agree too, Alice. I agree. I hate to use up some community center property, but it's the most practical thing to do. And there's a lot more land out there around the community center.
How much vacant land do we have around the community center right now, Mayor? Do you know?
Well, I can't give you an exact number. I think it's 6 acres. Mike, are you still with us? Roydon, do you know? I think it's 5 or 6 acres right there. Well, it's actually probably closer to 7. He's got it's about a 4-acre site that he originally proposed.
I think it's more like 8 acres altogether, Mayor.
He's gonna tell you right now.
All right, so he's got 9. Looks like 9.15 is that inside that white area. So you're looking at about roughly half of that by the time you get a fence around it. Just less than half.
Shane, can you give us an idea of how much acreage that array that we're seeing now would take away from the 9 acres?
Yeah.
Shane, you're still on mute.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was talking about the fence that we need to put around it. We like to have about a 20-foot buffer here. So, I'd say let's say 2 acres. And I feel confident we could do it, in roughly 2 acres.
So you get the whole thing in 2 acres. So we still got.
And this is, and this is the modified design that, may incur some additional cost. The larger array, or the sort of more typical array, let me see if I've got that up here.
One thing about it is we wouldn't be using the 48,000 that we budgeted for the land purchase. So we have a little more, something to put towards it.
Yeah, I would have to see. I'd have to look at the other, but we can sort of guess on that at least. So if we, I think the larger array when we were proposing it came out to about here. So that might be, something more like 3 acres.
Out of the 9?
Yeah.
So you're showing us the standard array versus the larger panels.
Correct. Yeah. Roughly 3. It could be. Yeah.
Well, it
I think
still
it's about
leaves us
accurate.
with a substantial amount of uninterrupted property.
That's right.
The solar panels are not breaking up the continuity of anything that we could put on that land.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think we could clip it off about here, realistically, if we were, and it depends how close we can get to the road. This is more of a conceptual layout to show the difference between the types of arrays, but once we have decided that this is where we want to look, what we'll do is have our engineer give us a more accurate layout, but I believe we can reduce that size.
All right, so I'd like to know from the council, are we going to wait until Shane can get back with us on what a 2 acre plus solar site's going to look like, what costs? Or is the general consensus to move forward with what's been originally the original version of the ground mount? With that said, because that tells me if we've got to host a special session, because to me this is worthy of a special session. If I get news back from Shane, hey, I've got your information here, then I'm going to wrangle the council back together for a special session so that we can make a decision on what those costs are going to be. Because if not, there's really.
My vote would be to go with ground mount.
Well, they're both ground. I think they're both ground mount. So more specifically,
3 acres.
Okay. So what's being proposed in that blue square right now is what Michael's saying. So I'm going to leave it to the council. If we make a decision tonight, I got to have a motion on it. If you guys say, hey, let's come back, let's Shane go back and do the math on it, and then we can come back in special session. Or if it takes a whole month, which I don't think it will, then we'll bring it up in October.
I'm certainly interested in seeing what the other option, the smaller ground mount option with the bigger panels. It leaves more real estate for us, right?
One more.
Say again.
Yeah, if we're all decided on going forward with the ground mount at the community center, I can have our engineers price up the condensed version, and then obviously just the one that we've agreed upon cost already. I don't think that would be any problem for them.
Ephraim, did you say something?
No, I was adding up in my head the acres that the small amount would save.
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly an acre.
Mm-hmm.
I would
And
be-
you did say that the smaller space is not as efficient.
That's correct. What we'll do, it will produce the same amount of energy, but it'll cost more. So from a dollar per kilowatt hour, it's not as efficient. It's not the optimal design. It will produce the same amount of energy. It'll just
But your projections are going to be different. I think McKinstry projected my charts on the other side of the room, but I was right at 2 million over 30 years of investment for us. So with the less efficient module, you're going to be getting just less than that by default off the top. So if it's 7% less effective, then I guess could you say 7% less of that initial return is what we'd be recouping?
Yeah, you'll be offsetting the same amount of cost per year because, but the system will cost more, so the return will be impacted. Yep.
So the panels aren't necessarily less efficient, right?
No, what it is, it's actually just a less efficient layout. So yeah, if we want to get into the details, please stop me if it's too much. But this array will be angled at 25 degrees facing south. This one will be at 12.5 degrees. The system can't support that. And well, and really it's a lot of wind loading and things that'll happen at higher angles with that big of a sail. So that's part of it. You're not getting as direct irradiance throughout the year, on average. Also, there's inter-row shading. If you notice, the ground coverage ratio is what we call it, is higher here, so there will be more shading where when one of those rows gets blocked, it usually will happen in the winter when the sun's lower, production will suffer more than something that's more spread out.
I guess I'm just mainly thinking about the 18-year payoff that we had kind of nailed down.
Yeah, this will give you that.
Okay.
It'll be affected. I can't tell you exactly how much, but we will.
Okay.
With that, what I'm picking up from the council is we want to wait, see what Shane and his team can come up with, get those numbers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because I'm looking for your guidance. Okay.
Yes, but then have a special meeting after we find the number out and make a decision.
All right, that's what we'll do. Shane, is that clear?
It is. Yep. I'll get back with our engineering team. Look to give you the estimated payback for and cost associated with the condensed design, and you already know the numbers associated with the optimized design.
This is good. So we're starting to narrow down to the final cut here. So we are gonna. It sounds like we'll end up going with the ground mount. Now it's a matter of what size and shape of ground mount. So, all right. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you,
Jay and Walter. Thank you guys for hanging on there with us. All right. Let me get back here on shared screen real quick. All right. Just two more orders of business here, guys. Next is the approval of the 2020 Arkansas Legislative Audit Report. It's in your packet. All right. This is a financial audit. It's done every single year, and there were no outstanding deficiencies. I need a motion to approve it.
I move that we approve it.
Second.
I got a motion by Gibb and a second by Raymond. Were there any discussion items on it? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I'll take a motion to pay the bills.
So move.
Second.
Suzanne.
Jerry Beth, did you get that? I think I got a motion by Suzette and a second by Coy.
Okay, that was the only thing I wasn't sure about who seconded it.
All right.
Got it.
Motion seconds made. Any discussion on the bills? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Any announcements from the council? A lot of work tonight. I really appreciate.
Mayor, sorry, I need to bring up a point that the fire chief has been talking about with me by text message, and that I've sent a few messages about this. We may need to look at our vendor ordinance that we just passed, because we want to make sure that we're not causing problems for the two of them that I can think of right now, the hibachi truck and also Lynn Ann's structure. There's part in it that says that it has to be affixed to a permanent structure. And I think what we mean by that is that not necessarily that it has to be affixed to the building there, but affixed to the land. So both the hibachi truck and Lynn Ann's coffee truck would comply with this, because they're affixed and have like permanent electricity wiring and things like that in there. So they're more like affixed to the land, I guess is probably a better way of saying that. So what I may end up doing is just bringing to y'all a modification of that for the next session, just so we can be sure we're very clear about that, and that we're not creating problems that we're not intending to create.
Any questions on that? All right, we'll look into it. If there's anything that's for the council's consideration, and I don't think there's a rush on this, we'll bring it back to the council in October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Anything
sorry.
else?
So everything with that 784, all that still passes and everything, right? We're not taking
Yes.
anything. Okay.
Yes, it's still passed. It's just, we want to make sure we didn't create an unintended consequence of hurting two businesses that we're proud to have here and want to stay here. We just want to make sure the language may be tightened up for the next go around, just to make sure we're clear on that.
Got it.
All right. If there aren't any other announcements, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move, Coy Butler.
Second, Ephraim.
Any opposed? Appreciate you work tonight, and I will let you know as soon as we get information back from McKinstry. You guys have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.